7 having arrived, we'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you everyone for coming tonight. The clerk will have a taking roll. We determine a quorum with 4 members present. Next would be approval of the agenda. I'm going to move that we amend the agenda. And at item 3 for citizen participation, we put the Bighorn Basin Nature and Discovery Center and move the first reading of the limited urban agriculture to number 4. So that is a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The agenda is approved. Alrighty, clerk and treasurer, we had the financial statement. Everyone had an opportunity to review that. If there's any questions,
I make the motion, we approve the financial statement.
we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Alright. Moving right along. Next, in citizen participation, we do have OEB Saloon catering permit. You all have that in your packet. Any questions or discussion on that, or? We have a motion to approve the catering permit. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. That prevails. Okay, keep myself organized here. Okay, next is the park maintenance bid for contract. Jim tells me we had one bid, and it is presented to you there for Tony's Total Lawn Care.
I would make the motion, we approve that bid.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the bid. We have a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you once again for continuing your service. Alrighty. So for item number 3 is the Bighorn Basin Nature and Discovery Center. We've got a few things going on here. One is I can't read apparently, so there was 2 asks from the Discovery Center. They are seeking several grants, and they're looking for letters of support from the town for those grants that they're seeking. They are gonna be here also at our next meeting on April 4th. And at that time, we'll be discussing the town potentially sponsoring a grant. At this time, it doesn't appear like there'll be any financial obligation from the town, but it will be a TAP grant through YDOT. And the county commissioners today discussed a similar grant that they're doing. Being that the Discovery Center is a joint powers board, the county is putting forward a grant for their own as their own singular entity. And so we really they can't do both. So where we're the other part of that joint powers, we would step in and be a part of that. But we'll have more information on that on the 4th for everybody there. So I think for tonight, what it would really be would be your blessing as council for me to draft and sign a letter of support for the grants that have been presented in this email, if everyone's had a chance to look over that.
I would make the motion that we sign the letters of support for these 2 grants here.
All right, we have a motion for the letters of support. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That prevails. All right. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the first reading of the limited urban agriculture draft ordinance. Marshall, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mayor.
there's actually, as I went through the ordinances, there's actually 3 ordinances that this would affect, so I amended all of them, or drafted amendments to them. First one is in the ordinance amending Town Code Section 4101 to allow limited number of agricultural animals within Thermopolis town limits. Whereas Section 4101 prohibited all agricultural livestock within the limits of Thermopolis, Hot Springs County, Wyoming. And whereas citizens of Thermopolis, Wyoming requested the code be amended to allow for limited agricultural use within town limits. And whereas review and investigation of other Wyoming incorporated town ordinances allowing agricultural animals within town limits, the council deems it appropriate and within the best interest of the citizens in the town to allow limited agricultural allowance for some animals within town limits with restrictions. Now therefore be it ordained by the governing body of the town of Thermopolis, Section 1. No person, firm, partnership, corporation, or association shall keep, harbor, stable, pen, or maintain horses, mules, asses, cattle, neither otherwise swine, pigs, geese, turkeys, or other livestock, except those listed within the exceptions. Nothing herein shall be construed to mean or include dogs, cats, or household pets on any premises within the corporate limits of the town. Section 2, exception for keeping chickens within town limits. A total of up to 10 chickens shall be allowed. B, 6-foot fencing, perimeter fencing in the covered pen, run, housing, or coops with no structures rising higher than the fence line is required to provide shelter from the elements and predators. C, all pen, run, housing, or coops must be offset from the property line by 5 feet minimum from the property boundary. D, no chickens shall be kept in the front yards of any property. E, 15 square feet per bird is required. F, no roosters over the age of 4 months is allowed within town limits. Section 3, exception for keeping ducks within town limits. The minimum requirements for keeping chickens shall also apply to ducks. D, if ducks are to be allowed to roam outside the pen, run, or housing coops, they shall have their wings clipped. C, only the duck breeds of Indian Runner, Muscovy, Roman, and Canas, Pekin, and khaki Campbells are allowed. Section 4, exceptions for keeping of miniature or dwarf goats within town limits. A, miniature and dwarf goats for the purpose of this ordinance are defined as any goat smaller than 26 inches at the withers. B, no more and no less than 2 goats over the age of 4 months old shall be allowed. C, no intact male shall be allowed to be kept within town limits. D, a 6-foot fence perimeter, a 6-foot perimeter fence shall be required with an interior pen for the goats having a height of 48 inches to 52 inches. E, housing of at least 30 square feet is required to provide shelter from the elements. F, the pen area for the goats must be a minimum of 130 square feet and offset from the perimeter fence by at least 3 feet. G, pens and housing for the goats are not allowed to be kept in the front yard. Section 5, exceptions for keeping of rabbits within town limits. A, maximum of 10 rabbits are allowed. B, rabbit cages or housing shall be a minimum of 5 square feet with a roof height minimum of 16 inches. Section 6, adequate water, food, and shelter must be maintained for the livestock. Failure to provide adequate water, food, and shelter for the livestock is a violation of cruelty codes within section 4-401 to 4402 of the town codes of Thermopolis. Section 7, animal waste must be disposed of or treated in a manner in which foul odors and runoff are prevented from entering adjoining properties, or public right-of-ways. Section 8, the limited agricultural exception shall only be allowed on single-family dwelling properties. If the property is a rented property, written permission from the landowner with contact information and lease must be provided when applying for a permit. Section 9, permits are required for the limited agricultural exceptions within town limits. Permits are $50 per species and shall receive a $25 discount for demonstrating a certificate of having completed an approved course for carrying of urban livestock. Each permittee shall have their facilities inspected and approved before the issuance of a permit. Section 10, only 2 species can be permitted and allowed on one property. For permitting purposes, ducks and chickens shall be considered one species and only a total of 10 fowl are allowed. Section 10, violations of this ordinance will be subject to the penalties of Code Section 4-102. That brings me to Code 4-102. An ordinance amending Town Code Section 4-102 to declaring agricultural animals kept in violation of town ordinance a nuisance. Whereas Section 4-101 is being amended to allow a certain number and class of agricultural livestock within town limits, and whereas the governing body, having reviewed and investigated other town ordinances within the state of Wyoming, find the code declaring livestock a nuisance within the town limits needs to be updated in the best interest of the citizens of Thermopolis to provide for penalties and enforce the new limited livestock ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained by the governing body of the town of Thermopolis. Section 1, the keeping, harboring, stabling, penning, or maintaining of said livestock and poultry in violation of Town Code Section 4-101 amended on the date that we finally finalize it. Within the corporate town limits of the town shall pay a fine double that of the permit fee for the first offense. Section 2, the second offense of violation Section 4-105 within 5 years shall result in a $200 fine. Section 3, for the third offense of violating Section 4-101, the offender shall pay a $750 fine, be prohibited from getting another animal permit for 5 years, and the property shall be declared a nuisance, and the town may abate in the manner provided by law for the abatement of a nuisance. That brings me to the third and last one, an ordinance amending Town Code Section 4-201, stock running at large declared a nuisance. Whereas Section 4-102, 101 and 102 have been amended to allow limited livestock class numbers within town, whereas Section 4201 also needs to be updated to reflect the changes made in the livestock exceptions. Now therefore be it ordained by the governing body of the town of Thermopolis, Section 1, all animals not permitted in Section 4-101, dogs and cats, running at large within the corporate limits of the town are hereby declared to be a nuisance, and any person or persons being the owners or harborers of any such animals or fowl, and who shall allow the same to run at large or be found at large within such corporate limits shall be deemed the author of a nuisance for each of said animals or fowl. Section 2, animals permitted in Section 4-101 shall be required to pay the fines and penalties in Section 4-102 for being at large. Section 3, upon the third violation of animals permitted in 4-101 being at large, they are deemed a nuisance and subject to nuisance abatement codes and law.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Alrighty, council, I would entertain a motion to discuss the ordinance that was just read to you.
I have one question, because I'm kind of dumb when it comes to goats. What is it, why is it no more or no less than 2 goats?
Well, if you have, my understanding is if you have only one goat, it is pretty miserable and extremely loud and will
Oh, okay. That's what I
be
wanted.
a real nuisance to the neighbors.
Okay, I didn't know that, I was just wondering.
Why did we have section 5 in there anyway?
Hmm?
Why did we have the goats in there anyway?
That's something that was brought up to me to include in this, so.
So that came out of our, so first, let's have a motion to formally discuss the ordinance before us. Can I get a motion for that? So,
Make a motion to discuss.
so a motion, second?
I'll second.
Second, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, so we, at our workshop last week, that's what precipitated out of that conversation. And I think Councilmember Lloyd, if you can speak to it a little bit, if you want, but I think kind of the crux of it was, all these other communities have done chickens and have seen they're not a major issue, so why would we perpetuate this whole process?
And our original ordinance on this included chickens, rabbits, ducks, miniature goats, so we decided just to put it all into.
Any other questions or discussion on that? I had just one, and again, it's probably me going too far into the legal weeds, but when we talk backyard versus front yard, do we have, if like we have like a trailer home situation where, you know, the trailer's kind of offset to the side, I mean, is there like a defining line, or is that one of those we'll just kind of have to?
Boy, Jim had brought that up earlier today, I think that could be an issue, and maybe that's one of those where, maybe you just, require wherever they're at, having a higher fence, or sectioning off a backyard if you only have a side yard. So they're not towards the front.
Okay. So council, that would be up to us if we wanna clarify that at all, because we do have a few homes within town limits that would fall into that, and I would,
Anthony's got a question.
yeah,
Mr. Mayor, as far as the fencing code goes, I believe for like side yard fences, that's already defined, and you can maintain the full height to the front of the house.
okay,
And I don't know, and I believe that's, I'm speaking off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
okay, so that would be a way to mitigate concern of the menagerie being at the street, more or less.
And corner lots would still give you a headache on that, probably.
Yeah. We can deal with some of those case by case. If we are gonna have anything that's case by case, would we have to put that in? Again, I know I'm opening a can of worms, but I wanna ask all the questions today in the first reading. So, and maybe that's something we get clarification for the second reading, kind of clear how we wanna address that, or maybe we don't think that'll be too big of a concern, because we can, cause yeah, corner lot would be, how would you,
I don't see it being a problem myself.
cause we have, but chief,
My question is, I live on a corner lot and I don't have a full backyard. I have a house directly behind me, so that means I basically can't have any chickens or goats or whatever. The only part I would have is just my side yard, which is the street side, that's the only place I would be able to have them.
what is our, do you have a good, Anthony, do you have a good handle on the fencing ordinance?
I can't remember that off the top of my head. I know,
If they had even if they had a trailer house in there, they'd still have to be 5 feet away from somebody's property, so they would still have a backyard, maybe if there was 5 feet there, they could,
Yeah,
they would still have a front yard and a backyard, so they wouldn't be able to have it in the front part of the trailer.
right. Mr. Butcher, did you have something to
I
add
just
there?
had a question, is it a visibility issue or is just no front yards whatsoever?
I think it's kind of the visibility
Okay,
part of it, for those that,
because it could be said like without proper fencing or, you know,
yeah,
not in the open or unsightly keeping of chickens within visibility or something like that, because
yeah.
I don't know if that could be,
Cause if you can, like in a side yard situation, like with a trailer, if you can fence the entire property at 6 feet, then it's a non-issue there. But with the corner lots,
They wouldn't be able to have them in their front yard anyway, because you cannot have a 6-foot fence in your front yard anyway, can you?
No, it's 36 inches.
So that would take care of that.
so all the deer fences in town currently, I don't wanna get anybody in violation, there's a lot of deer
Right.
fences. Could that be amended then? I mean, not to cost the city more.
yeah.
But for say, Mr. Cornwell, like if he built an adequate pen within his front side corner lot that wasn't visible,
It was screened appropriately.
you know.
Marshall, put you on the spot, do you have any thoughts on?
Well, you could, consider we already limit the fence height, you could just change it to no chickens shall be kept in yards without the 6-foot minimum fence.
And then it would go back to the fencing ordinance to say this is where you can have that fence.
Could you have, oh, excuse me,
Yeah, go ahead.
could you have like a chicken tractor, like where they're contained? I know a lot of people were interested in that, you know, running
Yeah,
within a contained, you know, and some of them are kinda pretty, I mean, we have one, but it's not being used, because we were excited 6 years ago, but it's there and ready, but it's actually, looks like a little chuck wagon,
yeah,
you know, so it's, I don't know if that could be properly contained and invisible.
I think where we're at right at the moment, we probably wanna keep it to where it's screened. The other part of the conversation is, we're gonna put on the calendar a year from now to revisit. We're not gonna put that right in the ordinance, under advice from legal counsel, but we will review in a year to see how the PD's been doing, how town hall's been doing with receiving complaints, how the permitting process has been going for Jim, and, make sure that it's still, that it's a good fit, so we intend to revisit it, so, any of these things that end up being like that we can revisit those. I have concern that if we don't kinda contain it, that then we do get to we start getting closer and closer to the at-large. Cause like I said in the workshop, I mean, I've seen videos even of the chicken ball, it's like a hamster ball, and the chicken can peck through it, and it's made out of heavy gauge wire, and they just roll around the yard, so. Okay, so we would have something just basically saying that has to be contained within, so it's within the 6 foot, and then it would just, that would be wherever we would kick back to the, so maybe it's already there, maybe we don't even need to change anything, am I?
Yeah, I think if you were to motion to amend it, just that no chicken should be kept in a, yard not properly fenced as section B, part B.
Okay.
Okay, I'm missing something here, because fencing can be chain link fencing, so get rid of the invisibility altogether.
True.
And you can have that in a front yard.
So I guess that's a good question for the rest of council then, is your wish for the screening or just more of the containment? Cause that does change things a little bit. Chief?
I would say for containment. I mean,
Right,
I know where Mr. Butcher's at. If he has I know where he lives, and who cares if chickens are in his front yard, eating the bugs and doing whatever they do, but the pens have to be outside, I think is what the difference is.
kind of in the back of the property.
Yeah, half of the property, it's nothing like walking by a house that has a dog that, defecates in the front yard.
Right,
And nobody ever cleans it, and you have to walk by it, that's all I'm saying, is.
yeah. So I guess that is a good question that Councilmember Hughes posed. I would tend to agree that the containment is more of the concern, because we can see people's dogs and everything else too if they don't have the privacy fence, so. Okay, no chicken to be kept in a yard with a fence shorter than 6 feet. So that would be one motion that we would amend there, 6 feet. And you'll make that sound pretty, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion on that part there? Any other questions as we go through it? I don't know if we have anybody in the crowd that wants to speak, but we might give a moment for a brief statement. Yes,
Just real quick,
and can you state your name for the record, just so Tracy
yes,
gets that?
Glenn Dunbar. I just have a question, maybe I missed it, but enforcement and how you're gonna deal with that, I mean, are people, who's gonna be enforcing it? Are they gonna be permitted to just walk on the private property and inspect wherever and whenever, or just a question?
Very fair question, and so the amendment to section 4-102 is, we're restructuring the nuisance animal enforcement, where the first contact, would be a fine that would double whatever the permit fee is. Second contact within a 5 years period would be a $200 fine. Third contact, within a 5-year period would be $750. It would be, animals would be confiscated at that point, and that particular property owner would be prohibited from receiving a permit again for another 5 years. Chief?
I think another thing he's trying to ask is, who's gonna enforce it? Of course, the police department's gonna be able to enforce it. There's a ordinance we have on the books already where animal control officers or police officers at any time can walk onto private property knowing that they have chickens. We can go in and inspect,
Mm-hmm.
and the ordinance is already set that way. And I think that might be your answer you're looking for.
Excellent. Then we also have, the other part of the enforcement is our code administrator, which is Mr. Jerome. So he'll be doing the permitting part of that, and we've put a review process in there. So during the permitting, we'll wanna make sure that the coop is gonna be located where it needs to be, and all the requirements are being met, so.
Would you require a complaint first before entering the property, or are there gonna be surprise inspections?
I don't foresee us having the wherewithal or the ability to do pop-in surprise inspections. Chief?
No, that's not something that we do. We have better things to do than chase chickens, look for chickens. We expect people to be able to do their due
Yep.
diligence with their own animals.
Yeah.
It's just like with anything else, dogs barking in the middle of the night. Once we get a complaint, that gives us the authority to enter the property. And we're going to knock on your door and we're gonna wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, that's the only reason why we would be there.
Okay. Very good.
noticed just one discrepancy, it was 3 feet for chickens and 5 feet, or 5 feet for chickens and 3 feet for goats, so that might,
In the minimum
yeah.
square
so-
foot, that was another question that I had, so the 4 square feet was what had kinda, in the workshop, it kinda precipitated out, looking at all the other ordinances and kind of the industry standard, if you will, I don't know a better term,
I was just meaning like the spacing from the neighbors.
okay.
I think it was listed different, 5 feet for chickens and 3 feet for goats. I'm pretty sure people would rather have goats 5 feet and chickens 3 feet. If there was a switch in that or one stipulation for both.
Okay, I see that here, so the pen, the pen area is being located. You see that, council, section 2, it would be C, and then section 4, F.
We're gonna make them both the same.
Should we make them both 5 then, is that,
If that's what the council desires, I believe I pulled everything just off of the notes. and,
Okay.
I believe it was originally 3, but if it's pinning and not keeping, once again splitting that, I don't think it matters. 3 feet, 5 feet.
so 5 feet would be adequate for what most people would wanna do
For pinning, yes.
for penning?
If the chicken was allowed within the fullness of the property but properly fenced, but yet pinning, I think, I don't know who would wanna put their pin right next to the neighbor.
Yeah, well,
We're not trying to
someone
create.
might, so.
Yeah,
So
5 feet
that's
is
a
probably,
Yep, yep, someone would, so I think, okay. So I think we'll just make, whoever makes a motion would be them,
Okay, 5 foot.
5 foot then. Okay,
And do we need 15 square feet per chicken?
my question was that for the coop, or is that for of yard?
I think the coop is mainly the housing, and
And
then,
4 square feet would probably, that was what had come out of the, so
housing.
that's E there, is what we had.
basically, you don't wanna have, like, someone with like 10 square feet packing it out. Cause they'll have to stipulate, if they can only have 2, they can only have 2.
Right,
You don't want, but if they do have room for it, you want them to have the maximum allowance, so.
right.
Those numbers can fluctuate, and once again, those are a conglomeration of multiple town codes and what people.
And I think once this is codified, that sort of thing will go into like a table or an appendix where we can adjust it if science or standard operating procedure says, no, you can actually put 20 chickens in 4 square feet, whatever. Not saying that's what we're gonna do, but it allows us the ability to adapt to that changes a little bit. So that future mayors and councils don't have to revisit this all the time, so we can kinda just operate. Alrighty. Any other,
So, what do you want that to be, 15 square feet per?
so I think it'd be 4 square feet per bird, but if that's, so that E, if that's regarding the coop itself.
Alright.
So 4 square feet per bird. Okay,
And that's the coop itself.
coop itself, yeah. Okay. Yes,
With the minimum goat requirement, if there is a happenstance in which someone has 2 goats and one passes away from sickness or age, would there be a grace period or something of that nature until they can acquire a second goat?
yeah, I think the 2 is just the maximum,
Okay,
so you could have 1.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
It will become a nuisance if you have less than 1.
yeah,
That's a guarantee.
yeah,
yeah,
We're not trying to create a nuisance,
right,
yeah,
right.
that's just a strong
So-
suggestion.
I mean, we could make a requirement, they have to have 2 goats, but that is a good,
Some
Yeah.
codes did.
I will say, I
That
keep
is
that
goats
how you wrote
myself.
it? Is a requirement,
No less
okay.
and no more.
So then to, can you state your name too, so we have it for the record?
My name's Caleb.
Caleb? Okay, and then, so that's a good question then. So I would imagine we would have a grace period for that, but I mean, how are we gonna know? Cause we're not, as we discussed previously, we're not doing checks, we're not doing stop-bys, so it'll become a nuisance and
Then we'll know about it.
we'll know about it and we'll say, hey, where's your second goat?
Your grace period's up.
Yeah, okay. I think that one will kinda regulate itself to what it sounds like, so. Okay. Any other discussion?
Because that goat passed away, he shouldn't be accountable for a nuisance call because his goat died.
Right,
And if he's trying to replace that goat, so it's not a nuisance, then I think that's what he's asking, right?
yeah,
Like, would there be like a week or two, maybe 3 grace period until you can acquire a new goat?
I see, so if you do get the call, we go out and say, hey, Chief's looking at me like,
I
here
just,
we go.
I'll say, I have several goats myself,
Yeah.
so I understand they can be interesting to deal with.
So, so Marshall, do you think we need to have anything in there, saying that, or we just kinda would have an understanding that, you know, if we make that contact because the goat's been getting noisy, that,
I could put something in the 102, with an amendment in there, with the exception of the passing of.
I know we're getting into the weeds, but we wanna, I mean, I want this to be simple, but I don't wanna create,
Mr. Mayor, I don't think I said my name, Darren Butcher, earlier, but, I think the nuisance isn't the dead goat, like, he's being punished for a dead goat. It's
Right.
just, that goat's gonna be screaming and crying the whole time.
right,
So the grace period is the neighbors
right,
are gonna be
that's,
saying stuff.
that's what I'm saying, it's gonna be enforced through a neighbor calling, we're gonna come out and have that first contact, but I don't think we need to be issuing a fine.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Councilmember Dorman is saying as well, we don't need to be issuing a fine because, Chief, go ahead.
I can hear it already. You have a whining goat. Have you ever gone on YouTube and watched these goat videos?
They are
Oh my
loud.
word, it's almost as bad as a barking dog or worse. So what power, we need to be able to fix that problem for the neighbors sooner than later.
Right,
So maybe there could be some verbiage put in there that that goat be taken to somebody else's herd until they acquire that second one, because we don't wanna have any more noise
right,
than we need.
right. So, Marshall, is that kind of the road you were going down, as we can,
Yeah, I could put in there in 102 that, you know, with the exception of, you know, for unseen for circumstances or whatever, one of these animals, goats, you know, has time to reasonably remove them from the premises to,
or mitigate, or
yeah,
however we wanna
yeah.
word that, okay. I would imagine most people that are going to the trouble to have 2 goats are gonna like have this in mind, and that's a big part of why we wanna really encourage people to get educated before, and that's why we specifically have written that into the ordinance, is that we're going to incentivize that education, so, when goat 1 dies, we replace goat 1 for the sake of goat 2 and the neighbors, so, okay. So that would be another item for amend, and that was on 401. Mitigate mourning goats. Okay. Keep myself together. Any other discussion on that, council? So if it would be your wish, council, I would entertain a motion for the amendments discussed to approve to approve those amendments, and then we'll go to the next part of the process here. I'm assuming you have good notes over there on what we've been discussing?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a second a second for the amendments we've been discussing. Any discussion on the amendments we've been discussing? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, then it would be to pass this on to the second reading, so we entertain a motion to approve the first reading. We have a motion to approve the first reading. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying, sorry, is there discussion on that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That prevails. So we will have those corrections made, those amendments made, and then we will have the second reading at our April 4th meeting. And again, I thank everybody who's been involved and put time and effort into this. Chief, I appreciate your time on the enforcement side. We appreciate that, and everyone else that's been involved. Alrighty, council, we do not have any public hearings tonight, so we'll move on to town departments. Chief, anything you'd like to report?
Nothing at this time. We've hired one officer, we have one about to be hired, going through background, and we possibly have a guy showing up Thursday that's certified out of Montana.
Oh.
So that would get us back up and running.
Excellent.
We'd miss out on 2 of them in August, September, October, November for the academy, but other than that, we're getting there, we're getting closer.
Excellent. It's good news. Thank you. All right, Director of Public Works, Mr. Genome, were you going to chime in for Ernie?
I was. So the new Slaker was supposed to be installed today. I haven't got feedback if that was completed 100%. And up at the airport pump station, one of the pumps that is out we've got the replacement. We just gotta wait for it to dry out so we can actually replace it.
Excellent. I think the only other thing really on Public Works is that I think we've moved on from snow and ice, so now we're to potholes and mud. All things being addressed, and but so we, knock on wood, we've made it through. We still have a chance for a few big snowstorms, but I think we're in the melting season. Town Engineer, Anthony, you have anything?
I have nothing to report tonight.
All right, thank you. Mr. Keller, anything beyond the discussion we had tonight?
No.
All right. Anything on codes? Jim, I don't think there's really too much going on there. And administration-wise, we really don't have anything other than what's been discussed tonight. So then, council, we do have need for an executive session regarding executive session regarding some real estate matters. So I would entertain a motion to enter into an executive session.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I would ask that everyone vacate. I think we'll keep all the town